There'll be times, there'll be other times when people you are going to interview will promise you things and then not deliver to you. Remember this, he said, don't worry about talking to the movers and the shakers of the world. Talk to the moved and the shaken. In other words, talk to the real people, the peasants who need attention, the victims of war and earthquakes and hurricanes. People who don't have a voice, give them a voice. You know, the presidents of universities and corporations can call a news conference and gather the press whenever they want to and get their message out, right? Issue a press release. But poor folks who live in the inner cities, the peasants in those countries don't have access to the media. So it's our job as journalists to go and talk to them and bring their story out. The reason I love journalism is because I see journalism as, imagine this room being pitch dark. We can't see our hand in front of us. It's totally dark. We're stumbling around. And the journalist, he or she, is the person with a candle or a flashlight. And they can shine it on the darkest corners of this room to illuminate injustice and to illuminate corruption and human rights violations and light up what needs to be lit. That's why I love what I do. And when we do journalism right, and we don't always do it right, by the way, too many times today we cover the Kardashians and Lindsay Lohan, and we're not paying attention to the really important stuff in this world. But when we do it right, that's what we're doing. We're lighting those darkest corners of the world to expose things that need to be exposed. I've been doing this for 30 years as a correspondent, covered Latin America and then Africa for prime time and 2020, and went to Israel to do a story about suicide bombers, and went to Vietnam to do a story about an orphanage there, went to Africa to do a piece on the last virgin rainforest in the heart of the Congo, Africa. And I did a story on Jane Goodall. You know Jane Goodall, the woman who studied chimpanzees for 30 years? I spent 2 weeks with her in Tanzania by a fireplace every night, where she was regaling me with stories about how she lived alone for 30 years in the jungle, documenting what chimpanzees were doing and how much like us chimpanzees are. She wound up getting married to a photographer, the only guy that ever came to visit Tanzania for National Geographic. He was a photographer. He interviewed her, they get married, they had a baby, and she told me that her baby, unlike, you know how we usually put animals in cages to keep them safe when we leave, you know, in crates or whatever, she used to put her baby in a crate in the jungle because she was afraid that the chimps would steal the baby. Fascinating traveling, interviewed Fidel Castro, and have done a wonderful, just inspiring amount of work all over the world. It's been fascinating. But it's funny that the show that I get the most notoriety from and the most attention is What Would You Do? Because I guess it's the show that I do all to myself. Unlike 60 Minutes or 2020, they're not 6 reporters. It's only Johnny Quinones doing this one story. So everywhere I go now, it inspires me that young people like yourselves watch the show and care. And I brought one of the clips of the show that I thought you may want to see. You want to see one? This one has to do with immigration. You know, Arizona, the state of Arizona, is really tough on illegal immigrants. And what they do is they've given permission under this new state law called SB 1070. They've given the cops permission to stop anyone who looks Hispanic and try to get their papers and deport them if they look Hispanic. So who are they going to stop? Are they going to stop the blonde-haired, blue-eyed girl? I'm afraid not. They're going to stop people who are dark skinned. So we went there, and guess what? I went to cover, and I posed as a Mexican immigrant speaking only Spanish, and we had a security guard pretending that he was going to have us deported. All right? So this is the way nobody else knew at that restaurant that we were doing What Would You Do? Let's see how they respond. We're back at this popular restaurant in Tucson, Arizona. I feel you guys walk in. Our cameras are still rolling to capture what people will do when they're deep in and don't belong. They're all actors hired by What Would You Do? Everybody is asking the same question. They want to know where you're from. Even though it's supported by many Arizonans. The state's new anti-immigration law triggered a wave of protests when it was first introduced.
Crackdown. Arizona targets illegal immigrants.
What if they're Before the break, this man pointed out that even I, as a Mexican-American, could very well be a target of harassment. So I pull on a cap and shades and go undercover.
Where do you go?
You guys speak English?
No.
Maybe some Pachito? Do I say that right? English? You get some identification, some papers?
When he hears the guard's remarks, this man doesn't just step up, he launches out of his seat.
I came over friendly to them. I just want to make sure that everything is okay. I just think it was legally and highly offended. My grandmother was there. There's no reason why you should judge somebody based on that. I'm serious. Back off. Leave me alone.
When he heads back to his table, I decide to break character and introduce myself.
You're not Hispanic.
To my grandmother.
But I think it's not used a factor of humanitarian concern.
Dressed as I was and speaking only Spanish, I found myself feeling vulnerable.
Senate Bill 1070 is a wrong approach to deal with immigration.
This man can relate. He's Tony Estrada, the sheriff in the border town of Nogales, Arizona.
You can be born here and you can look Hispanic or be Hispanic and you're a target. Get a target on your back. You know, I would feel a little uncomfortable in being in Tucson, maybe Phoenix, not being in uniform.
Sunglasses on inside?
Back in our Tucson restaurant, no one has stepped up on the side of our security guard.
Speak English at all? No. You guys from Mexico? You have some papers or anything like that? Visa, a document, anything. You just... Look, I'm gonna... Hey, I got no issue. All right, hey. I understand.
The security guard lingers outside, pretending to call the border patrol.
There's two guys in there, sitting at the table.
And then a preemptive strike by a student named Talia. Talia follows our actor outside. And then this woman comes out of the restaurant.
So the only thing I did, look, right now we have an issue in Arizona.
And before going back inside to finish her dinner, she delivers her final blow.
So,
I'm a reporter. What would you do? What did you tell her? You told her this was once Mexico. But you didn't know me. Let me go off this.
I just wanted to see some ID and make sure everything was okay. Everybody's like, oh, it's no big deal.
In this last scene, you won't believe what this woman wanted to do for us. Two complete strangers.
I'm just looking to make sure that these guys are legal citizens. And if they're not legal citizens, they shouldn't be here. They should be deported. They look Mexican.
The wheels in this woman's head are turning. Wait until you hear her plan.
I'm gonna try to get him deported, put him in the papers. We gotta get those two guys out of here.
All I'm doing is I'm just looking out for everybody's safety.
You racial profile. You totally racial profile.
Look, looks like a duck, smells like a duck.
Look what is